Hello, everybody. AJ Soccer here, back with another episode of Modern Maniacs. Goblins. Am I right? Eldrazi's still around, and by around I mean everywhere. It's like over half the field online. And last episode, we explored one of the ways to attack Eldrazi, which is to be sort of a classic control deck, card advantage and wraths. This time, we're going to try and go toe to toe with them on the ground, but out wide them. Just beat them with raw creature count with goblins. Now, this is a deck that I've been talking with Greg Hatch about for months now, but never really got around to playing because I was doing the Seance challenge, and yeah, it just never really happened. And then I saw a couple lists actually pop up in leagues of people playing goblins. So this is my take, and let's go over it now. Foundry Street Denizen is just the worst card in the deck. It's just like a bad thing, but you need a placeholder one drop, and it hits pretty hard with the token things, so it's good enough. But it's a goblin that hits hard. Goblin Guide, obviously, both super aggressive and a goblin, and indicates how aggressive this deck really wants to be. You can't really play a Goblin Guide deck that tries to go long. So that's your tip off that we're gonna try and get him dead. Mog Fanatic as a 4 of. There's a lot of X1s right now. Even the Eldrazi decks have Sky Spawners and Mimics, and then Infect is huge, and Affinity, and I'm forgetting one. Oh, just the green decks being able to kill a bird or an elf is pretty useful. And then Frenzied Goblin as a one of. The diminishing returns on this guy is pretty steep. You don't really have all this mana lying around to activate multiple of these. And then the Legion Loyalist, same thing. It's good enough to play one, but you never really want to draw two because the triggers don't stack. Like they just do the same thing. So having multiples, the second one is just a Raging Goblin. So that's why those are one ups. And then we see 10 token makers, 3 Dragon Fodders and 3 Krankos Commands, which are effectively the same card, and 4 Mog War Marshal, which is effectively a better version of that same card. What'll often happen is you don't pay Echo, but then play a Bushwhacker and give the token haste anyway, so there's no real downside, or at least it's very small. But the upside of being able to chump with it that turn for free, or pay the Echo and get the extra value, can be really, really useful, especially in post-board games when they get pyroclasms and stuff like that. Then we get to the meat of the deck. 8 Bushwhackers. Old school Goblin Bushwhacker, which was a huge part of Standard and saw extended play back when extended was a thing. And it's got a new friend, which is just kind of the same card, similar enough at least. And so now with 8 of this effect, the problem with decks like this before is you had to play something like Goblin Chieftain as your extra Goblin Bushwhackers, and Bolt is everywhere and Path and stuff, so they would just kill it, and then you wouldn't have the Anthem effect. So having access to the extra actual Bushwhackers is what makes this deck work more than it would have before. And then 3 Pile Drivers. The thing with Bolt and Path still stands, but it hits so hard if you get it through in this deck that I think it's worth playing. And you can just board them out if they're one of the cheap removal decks. And the Pro Blue is not irrelevant either, with Merfolk and Snapcaster and Sky Spawners. I'm sure there's more blue stuff. So yeah, Pile Driver, pretty sweet. And then actual literal Goblin Grenade. Old school card, but was randomly in M12 when they had some tribal things going on in core set. And yeah, 5 damage for 1 mana. Pretty good rate. Every creature in the deck is a goblin. if not more than one. Another synergy with the Mug War Marshal, like on 3 mana, you can play the Mug War Marshal, Goblin Grenade away, the War Marshal proper, so you get the 2 tokens and the Goblin Grenade for free. And then 1 Lightning Bolt to fill out the deck. This last slot I fiddled with a lot. I had like the 1 Chieftain or the 4th Pile Driver, but I kind of like the idea of playing 1 Bolt. It messes up the math a lot for your opponents. Either you'll cast a bolt early and then they'll just assume you have 4 bolts, because why would you play bolt but not 4? And they might make poor decisions based on that. And you never really wanted to draw multiples anyway, because it's a critical mass deck. You really want, if you draw too many bolts, then your Bushwhackers aren't doing anything. And then it's just an efficient card. It's worth playing, but again, the diminishing returns are steep, and the value of misinformation is pretty sweet. So that's why we see the 1 bolt. Most of these decks that I've seen online play more 1-drops and less lands, but I like the versions that go up to 20 lands and play all the Bushwhackers and all this good stuff, because there's lots of stuff to do with your mana. One of the other ways that you can build this deck that I talked with Greg Hatch about was playing green, which gives you a Tarka's Command, which act as additional Bushwhackers. So you probably don't play the Pile Drivers, you play Tarka's Commands. They don't give haste, but if you just have like 4 tokens around, then your Tarka's Command is dealing 7. That's pretty good. And then you get green sideboard cards, which are obviously nice, particularly Ancient Grudge. But I don't think it's worth it. The life you pay in fetch lands is definitely annoying, and if you're on a Blood Moon plan, part of the reason you want to be like playing a mono red deck right now is Blood Moon is really, really good with everyone playing Eldrazi. And if you have all these green cards in your deck, then you kind of have this weird tension with your Blood Moons post board. So straight mountains, you get room for a couple of colorless lands. You don't want too many, because you actually do want a ton of red. Say I want to play Frenzied Goblin and Bushwhacker and activate the Frenzied Goblin. That's 4 mana, but that's RRRR. So you don't actually get that many colorless lands, even though normally in monocolored decks you would have a lot more leeway there. But you want RR on 2 and probably RRR on 3. So you can't just overload with colorless lands. I am opting for the 1 Cavern is probably irrelevant, but value. Once Eldrazi are gone and decks that have remands and mana leaks and stuff are back, Cavern's gonna be pretty good. But in the field right now, Cavern's not that good, so just the 1. Contested War Zone is one of my favorite cards of all time. If you're not familiar with this one, it's another Anthem. Slight downside of if you get hit, you just lose the land. So high risk, high reward is what the Contested War Zone is. But another Anthem effect can't hurt. And then Care Keep, the Time Spiral special, make some Cobalts. Probably better off just playing Mutavault over both of these, just like 2 Mutavaults in a Cavern, or 3 Mutavaults, 2 Mutavaults in a Mountain, something like that. But I love Contested War Zone, and it's if not here, where? And the Care Keep, again, if not here, where? And I can definitely see some situations, especially post-board, where they have more mass removal, where the game goes long, you start to flood out a little, and you can make a couple tokens, and then on 5 mana, make a token and Bushwhacker it and get in for a little more damage. So, yeah, Care Keep. Sideboard. The 4 Blood Moons, obviously. Sorry that they're mismatched here, but deal with it. Ghost Quarter. I want to go up to 21 lands when I board in the Blood Moons, so I want the land for that. And in matchups where I want Blood Moon, Ghost Quarter is going to be good, right? Because you bring in Blood Moon against the important non-basics, which Ghost Quarter also gets. So that makes sense. And having the land in the sideboard also has the added benefit of, against other creature decks or aggro decks, I can board out my Contested War Zone, but still keep my land count at 20, which is where I want it. So that's why the Ghost Quarter's there. Dismembers Eldrazi, basically it. Shattering Spree, artifacts, both Lantern and Affinity. The other bolts for other creature decks, green decks, merfolk, stuff like that. The fourth pile driver and the two chieftains are. Well, the pile driver can come in against things like merfolk, where the pro blue is good, or I just think it's going to live. But the pile drivers and chieftains all come in against the combo, where I'm actually trying to kill my opponent on turn 4 or turn 5 at the latest, and being able to go, one drop token into chieftain into thing bushwhacker is one of the ways they do that. And a lot of the combo decks, now that Splinter Twin is gone, are really linear. They're all of the cards that they're playing are dedicated to finding and assembling and executing their combo. They're no longer sort of incidental combos of decks that have bolts and snapcasters. So in those matchups where you are racing, it's very likely that your chieftains are going to live and that your chieftains are going to be important. So that's why those are there. Pretty cool sideboard plan that is theoretically really, really sound, but we haven't seen anything like it in a long time, at least in Modern, because Twin just crushes that sort of line of thought. But yeah, so this is the deck, and we'll see how it runs.